Greetings, everyone. I am Robin Hassler Thompson with the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center here in Tallahassee, Florida. We are an agency that provides direct care to survivors of both sex and labor trafficking of any age, of any immigration status, of any disposition or group whatsoever. We also do something unusual, I think, for some groups. We also provide care to people who we see are at risk of being trafficked, at severe risk of being trafficked. We do that through the wonderful work of Graciela Marquina, who is on this call. Hello, or on this webinar. Hello, Graciela. And you may see Graciela chime in from now on various things. She might be giving you some links to our website or being helpful or her email address. So know that Graciela is the person to contact if you have any questions about the care that STAC provides. The only way we do this, and I'm sure all of you know this as well, is with many partners. And it's wonderful to see so many people from around Florida. You know, even though we're a big state, I will tell you, just recently I was working with a domestic violence shelter in Southwest Florida, helping a survivor get to another part of the country, actually. So even though we don't usually do that in terms of outside of our 6-county jurisdictional area, we do when someone has roots in our area to try to get them the help and support they need. So partners are really at the core of what we do and why we're able to do it. We do and are building lots of outreach into our rural areas. And I should tell you too, we just finished our last annual report. We've assisted over 200 survivors of sex and labor trafficking since we formed almost 10 years ago. Can you believe it's been 10 years? We'll be turning 10 next year. And we have helped to provide community and other education to over 20,000, almost 21,000 people, if you can believe it. And these monthly webinars are one of the big reasons we're able to do that. We're also here to provide agency-specific training, which we can do on many different ways. We can do it in person, we can do it on Zoom, and we're happy to work with you all on that as well. Okay, next slide, please, Lisa. So one of the things, yeah, there you go. One of the things that people always ask is this being recorded? And so if you go to our website, which many of you probably already have, you will see that you can go to the Education and Training Resources tab, see all past webinars, and see this one. We also will be posting the PowerPoint from today. So don't worry if you are not able to write down all of the citations to various immigration laws or other resources. This will be available to you on our website in full, as well as the recording if you wanted to listen to it again. Of course, our services are free of charge, and we really encourage you to go to the event page. Many of you know that is not the email to receive the certificate. I'm just going to take a little question here. You will get the certificate if you've registered through it, which it sounds like you have, through the website with just-in-time training. They'll send it out within a week or so, usually faster. And you'll get that. If you don't get it, then you do have to do that JIT support. And Lisa can post that email in the chat in a second. But if you don't get the email, don't get the certificate, oh, it's Friday. You can follow up and we will get that for you. The other thing I'll tell you is if you happened to suggest somebody else watch this and it's a week later and they watch it, STAC will send them an attendance certificate or can send you an attendance certificate for any past webinars. So for our purposes, and I know that Graciela might be able to give me a hand here and put my email in, but you could put actually the STAC email in and my email in, and we'll be sure to get you a certificate to watch if you've watched this webinar or any other one that's on our website. So please, last point here, we curate other programs. We added, for example, the Attorney General's Summit is up on our event page. When I see other, and we get information about other cool things going on around the state, we post them on our website. So let me open the door to you all too. If you have an event coming up and you really would like to get the word out, we are happy to help you do that. So just send me an email. Thank you, Graciela. Robin at surviveandthriveadvocacy.org. I'll be glad to get that to you. Our events, our events like this are free of charge. Of course, when you registered, we certainly will be grateful for anything that you can provide in terms of a donation. It is really, really hard to stay afloat in terms of nonprofits, if any of you know, or social services. So the extent to which you can help us do that and keep these events going strong, we will appreciate that. Okay, next slide, please. One of the things we do, another great resource for you, is the Imagine Freedom podcast. This is a podcast where we speak, we only interview, there's a clap. We only interview survivors of human trafficking. And let me promise you, these are not stories of people describing the most horrendous things that ever happened to them. It's quite the opposite. It's a very hopeful, a very instructive, very enlightening conversation that I do have with survivors to learn what we can do better, to hear from their wisdom and experience, to understand specific topics. I will tell you, I'll give you a sneak preview. A podcast is about to come out where we're going to be talking about human trafficking and trauma. As well as human trafficking and the intersection with intimate partner violence. So we've got those two topics coming, and a survivor is going to help us be smarter on those topics. So take out your phones, take a look at this, or go on our website, and you'll see Imagine Freedom podcast. And as they say, so subscribe, rate, and review. that will help us stay going strong there too. Okay, next slide. Here is another way, if you would be so kind to consider, again, a gift to Stack to keep these programs going and our programs in general. I'll also use this as a moment just to say, don't forget, this is coming up again. January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And before you know it, January 2025 will be here. We'll be doing a lot of outreach for support to keep our programs going strong. And again, we appreciate your support. Next slide, please. Okay, today we have two wonderful speakers, two experts in this field of immigration and human trafficking. What can I say? We have been going through a lot in terms of immigration in the United States, and we are so grateful to have two of our state's experts with us today. I think this is the third time we are having these two speakers speak with us to help us be smarter about a very complex area of the law, but not one that's inaccessible, and not one that you can't be grounded on to be able to do better when you're assisting a client, or when you're encountering someone in the community who may be undocumented and a victim of human trafficking, sex or labor trafficking. So I'm really grateful. The other thing, before I introduce them, I want to tell you that in our preparation, we were talking about today, and in light of all the political realities around us, we are hearing about immigrants and immigration a lot. We also find that with this topic, because there's so much out there, often people may want to ask about really specific things going on with them or people they know. And what we'd like to ask you is two things. First of all, even though they're wonderful advocates and really smart lawyers and legal representatives, they won't be answering specific legal questions today. We will have Daniela's and Vanya's information at the end for you to follow up. So we won't be getting into any specific legal situation. So So you might want to hold those questions or ask them later. The second thing that we wanted to reflect on is there's so much out there, for better, for worse, in our world of social media. There's a lot of good information out there, and there's a lot of bad information out there. And what we want to do is, in this very, very pivotal time when it comes to people who are in our country, who are foreign born, we want to make sure you and everyone gets the correct information. So our program today will feature trusted resources, definitely trusted information from these two experts, from Vanya and Daniela. And we're also going to give you resources because things are happening fast and furious, and it's easy to go into a place of fear, to go into a place of confusion, and we want to help. So we're here to talk about this issue today, immigration as it intersects with human trafficking. And we're also going to give you information to really fortify you. So you and the people around you are going to be able to do their utmost to be safe, and to do what they need to do. So with that, I don't know if there is anything else I needed to add to that. What I would like to do is introduce our speakers now. And then if there are other kind of just overall thoughts you both have before we go into the PowerPoint, I'd love for you to share. But let me start out with introducing you to Daniela Donoso, who is a staff attorney. You can read her bio there with FERC, the Family and Immigration Rights Center. And on a personal note, I have to say I've worked with you now for decades, because Daniela was an intern. And as an undergrad, as a graduate student in law school, has worked at the Human Rights Center at Florida State University. So it has been a journey, a wonderful journey to see you go from an undergrad all the way to a member of the bar. And here you are helping other people, as you have been your whole time, your whole professional life. So Daniela also is a board member of the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center. So we're so grateful that you are on the board. I'd also like to introduce you to Vanya Aguilar. Vanya is with the Human Rights Center as well. She's a program manager there. And Vanya is one of those people that every organization, if they have a person like Vanya, if that's even possible, you know that the organization would not be sustained and exist if it weren't for them. So Vanya, that's how I've seen you work all these years at the Human Rights Center, making it happen for boatloads of interns, of students, of clients, of all manner of people who come to the Human Rights Center, this great center at FSU. She is an expert trainer as well. She has represented, I want to say, can it be hundreds of people? Yes. In the immigration context, she is BIA accredited, and she's getting her PhD now too. On top of all of this, y'all, she's getting her PhD. So Vanya, one of the best people I know too on the planet. It's so great to have you here to talk about this issue. And with that, I will turn it over to Vanya and Daniela, and thank you again a million times for doing this program with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are really pleased that there is definitely an interest in seeing how to help the community. Just a disclaimer, we're not going to be providing, as Robin said, legal advice. Every human trafficking case is different, and it is better to consult an expert. At the time that you see a case, we are going to be talking about different kinds of immigration relief, different kinds of services in collaboration. Daniela, if you can please. Wonderful. So this afternoon, we're going to focus in different areas. We're going to talk about foreign victims of human trafficking and who they are. We are going to be talking about the different kinds of services for foreign victims of trafficking, as there are definitely challenges, especially because many organizations may not necessarily No, what to do? It's many times there's a gray area as to the services, and we're going to be discussing a little bit more on that. We're definitely going to talk about immigration relief because victims of foreign victims of human trafficking may be eligible for different kinds of immigration relief. And absolutely talking about collaboration because it definitely takes an entire village when it comes to working um, with different organizations, but also working with our clients and empowering them and let them actually take the lead as to what is it that they want to explore.
So, as Vanya mentioned, first we're going to do an overview of what does it mean to be undocumented? What does it mean to be a foreign victim? So, really, foreign victims of human trafficking, they may be documented or undocumented immigrants. So, what does that mean? So, first, living undocumented, we know that it's a risk factor. It makes you vulnerable because because typically you don't have a social security card, you don't have a Florida, let's say a Florida ID, a driver's license, and you don't have a way to legally work in the United States. And so this makes you vulnerable because employers may take advantage knowing your immigration status, and they could uh, threaten you with deportation, threaten you with the fear of law enforcement, right? We see clients that have a lack of familial support. Some people are here all on their own. They don't have anyone to lean on to call and say, hey, I'm in trouble or something's not right, right? A lot of people aren't familiar with the laws or the fact that they do have rights here in the United States, even if they are undocumented. So we know as a whole, living undocumented is an access issue. It's a problem to not have access to transportation, to housing, to bank loans, to information, right? So, again, how this plays into being a risk factor to and a vulnerability to being trafficked.
Yeah. Daniela, before we move on, can I ask you to
Yeah.
just cover something a little bit, just kind of quickly? You mentioned fear of law enforcement. Can you just tell us a little bit as to why our immigrant community actually has fear of law enforcement? They're here to protect us, but why are they afraid?
Yeah, great question, Vanya. So what we've seen a lot is well, first, let's just say someone with a language barrier, right? We've seen this a lot. There might be a victim of domestic violence. She's living with her partner. They're both undocumented. She calls the police. The sheriff comes out to try to talk to her, but he doesn't speak Spanish. She doesn't speak English. And the partner might have more English language proficiency. And so I've had clients before that had police records of domestic violence charges, even though they were the ones that called because of the language barrier. And the officers just didn't understand what was happening. And then they end up getting arrested, separated from their children.
Yeah.
That's a very real just example of the fear community has for calling the police because they don't have documents. So that leads to if you're arrested by local law enforcement, then there's the fear that local law enforcement will call federal enforcement, ICE, right? Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Um, and then they will be detained and then deported back to their home country and separated from their family.
Yeah.
So a
And
lot of, yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Thank you, Danielle. If you don't mind, let me just piggyback on that and just add a
yeah.
little bit more. We have also seen that some of our clients, the traffickers use exactly that because of the
Mhm.
corruption in other countries, in law enforcement being part of different, maybe um, groups that are not
Yeah,
nationally not actually conducting legitimate businesses and they think that the traffickers, because that is what they tell the victims, their traffickers actually have a connection with law enforcement. And I've
yeah,
seen that a lot with some of my clients too. But thank you, Daniela, for expanding on that.
yeah. No, that's an excellent point. Um, And I think, Robin had said it before, but if anyone has questions, feel free to put in the chat as we're talking. We'll try to look at questions during the presentation, and if not, we'll save them to the end. So we have undocumented workers in Florida. Yes, of course we do. Agriculture, tourism, education, job opportunities. So many reasons that people, come to Florida for work and to settle down. So yes, and as Robin stated, trafficking does happen here locally in Tallahassee.
So again, not to um, overstress about it, but again, both documented and undocumented foreign nationals. When we talk about undocumented immigrants, we are referring to people who have entered without inspection. And you may hear this term a lot, especially within the legal area. EWI, EWI just stands for enter without inspection. We may also see that in industries in which we can't find workers in the US, they are brought with workers' visas. There are different kinds of workers' visas, the H-2A and the H-2B visas. And with those visas, people come because, again, there is a high need of those workers on a temporary basis. There is one catch to these types of visas, and that is that the visa is tied to the employer, to the company that actually has brought them. And so the moment that they walk away from a situation that has become extremely abusive, trafficking situation, for example, they are completely out of status. We have also seen that many companies take advantage of this factor, and they may end up exploiting, taking documents away, threatening, making them work long hours without compensation or without the proper compensation. We have also immigrants who've entered with tourist visas. I've had clients who have entered with a tourist visa, really not knowing the extent as to how to change a tourist visa to a worker's visa or eventually a green card, because they have been promised that eventually they will be able to adjust to become a lawful permanent resident in the United States. We have also seen trafficking victims that have come with immigrant fiancé visas. So there's an array of people. When people think, oh, foreign victims of human trafficking, they may think, oh, and I hate to say this, by the way, but we hear it a lot, illegals. That's really, no one is illegal. That's really a derogatory term. We replace that with saying that someone is undocumented, meaning they don't have government documents issued in the United States. So I would encourage everyone to try to avoid terms like that.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
making that point,
Yeah.
Vanya. And so we're going to do our first scenario. And Vanya, I'll read this scenario and see how you dissect it based off of all the information you just said.
Absolutely.
So here we have Anna. So a recruiter came to Anna's hometown in Mexico, offering people temporary employment in agriculture for $12 an hour in the US. The recruiter told her that she needed to bring the deed to her house as collateral to make sure she complied with the work contract and also pay a $4,000 recruiting fee. Once she arrived in the US, her employer took her passport and visa. Anna and other workers were taken to a warehouse where there was no AC and they did not have enough to eat. They were only getting paid $10 a day. Anna's crew leader forced her to have sex with him. He told her that if she did not, he would cancel her work contract and have her deported. There were guards with weapons at the entrance of the farm, so they were afraid to leave. So Vanya, I wanted to ask, first, is Anna a victim of trafficking, and how do you know?
Okay. Before we go into that, I just wanted to highlight on the chat some of the examples that we are receiving. Victor Williams, thank you very much for sharing.
Oh.
We always really appreciate all your expertise. And he says that he has seen that in sports, baseball players from the DR. And it can happen in basically any industry, just as it happened to Anna. It looks like our agriculture, which is huge in Florida, right? That's one
Hmm.
of um, of the areas that actually drives our economy. So the questions, Daniela, are: Is Anna first? Is Anna a victim of human trafficking? So I want people
Right.
to actually help me out with this question. What does everyone think? Yes, Diana says yes, 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 she is. Okay, so let's
Yeah, strong
explore how.
yeses. Yeah, so
Yes,
how?
absolutely. No, and I absolutely agree with everyone. She was promised a job, work. She was going to be compensated $12 a day. She was recruited. She was practically charged to come to the US, something
Hmm.
that really shouldn't happen. But there are so many uh, cases that we have seen in which this happens. So she arrived in the US, she arrived with a visa, with a worker's visa, and it looks like instead they were only paying her $10 a day. It looks like she was forced both um, to work, but also the crew leader was sexually abusing her.
Right.
Um, she was threatened to be deported, right? So all of those factors really tell us that yes, she was a victim of human trafficking. Daniela, what was that other question that you asked, or did you ask another question already?
Yes. So, following up with that, um, does Anna have any immigration status?
Mhm.
Does
So
Anna have any immigration status?
absolutely. And so going back, right, to what I was mentioning about temporary workers, they do come with a workers visa. They end up getting a work permit and a social security card. Unfortunately, what we see in many cases is that the employers are the ones that keep these documents. Some of my clients haven't even seen what a social security card looks like, even though they have one. So, yes, they do have immigration status. However, as long as they continue to work for that employer that is abusing them, that is exploiting them. So in Anna's case, yes, as long as she continues with that company, she has status. The moment she walks away, or the moment she's able to escape that situation, she no longer has
Yeah.
status.
And Vanya, Michael Castle made a good point that she has her visa and her passport, but it was taken from her.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we see, unfortunately, a
Right.
lot.
So the next question, what kinds of services might Anna need? So at this point, we know she's a trafficking survivor. She came with her visa and now she's at your door. What kinds of services might Anna need?
Okay. Well, we this is something that we need to work with Anna, right? We need to find out what the needs are. And I wish that, Stack is amazing in our area. I hope that all of you have a Stack within your area, because they do a whole assessment and they find out what is it that Anna immediately needs. Many clients need to go home. Many clients don't even want to stay here. They want to go
Yeah.
back to their home. And we have to, as service providers, and having that victim center approach, we need to focus on what the clients want, right? So it's a matter of working with Anna and finding out, okay, let's say that Anna wants to stay here because she has a debt maybe back in the home country. Because there was this huge recruiting fee, right? Maybe she wants to work. Well, we would connect her with an experienced immigration attorney that handles these kinds of cases, right?
Yeah.
Maybe she needs housing. We would explore with an organization that provides housing. We have to collaborate, and we'll cover this a
Right.
little bit more at the end of our presentation
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
find out how we can help.
Yeah. And
And if you'd like a short summary, people are saying all kinds of things. Possible translation, rape crisis because she has
Hmm.
been raped by the crew boss. The food, employment, travel, home if she wants to go home. Legal,
Hmm.
food, medical. So we do have a lot of people chiming in. A place to stay, as you said,
mhm.
Vanya. So a very active group of attendees here with some ideas
Love
for
it.
Anna.
Love
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
And so, like you mentioned, Vanya, well, we can briefly go over, what kinds of services are in our
in
area,
your
and we'll cover that. But so thank you
absolutely,
everyone for contributing to that scenario, and we'll have another one later in the presentation. So,
absolutely.
Vanya, now that you briefly touched on it, can you talk more about, specific services for foreign victims of trafficking, specific and to them?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of this already our attendees have addressed. Of course, we have housing. In order to obtain services um, for foreign victims of human trafficking, especially when they are undocumented, there are two different ways to obtain them. There is a way to find out what programs are within your area that have a TVAP, the Trafficking Victims Assistance Program. We do have in our area. I believe that the IRC still, the International Rescue Committee, still has that program within our area, and they're able to extend certain services under the TVAC program. That's when, of course, clients are undocumented and they are still not certified. So we would talk about employability services, mental health screening, therapy, medical care, legal services. Again, that needs to be also explored. Just keep in mind that the goal is to have the client be the one to determine also providing the information to the client, but let the client guide you as to what they need. Because what I might think that the client needs is not necessarily what the client wants. And so, what are we doing again? We're re victimizing the client by really imposing our views, imposing what we want, and that's not
Yeah.
something that is okay. Danella, can we go to the next slide?
Yes.
Our foreign victims of human trafficking, our clients, can also get a certification letter, but a certification letter from the Health and Human Services Department allows them to get more benefits. However, they can only get these benefits if they have already filed um, an immigration relief application and they have either gotten continued presence. Continued presence is only obtained if they are working with law enforcement, because law enforcement is the only one that can request that. Service providers, legal service providers, or other service providers can't request it. Um, if they have a T visa, meaning they have been approved for that type of immigration relief. We'll talk a little bit more about this kinds of immigration relief types in a little bit. And then also if they have received a bona fide T visa application notice. There is a link on this slide that takes you directly to a system in which service providers can request a certification letter. I requested one for one of our clients and gave it to Stack just yesterday, actually. And with that letter, they're able to apply for services through Access Florida in our state, and they could potentially receive food stamps, Medicaid, and possibly other services that might be available. They are eligible to get benefits just like refugees are able to.
And
Daniela,
can
if we
you talk to what about if they're a minor?
Absolutely. So if they are a minor, they don't get a certification letter, they get an eligibility letter, and there are many other services that we're going to be talking about. With minors, you can explore an array of different services. They don't necessarily are required to work with law enforcement. There are new regulations, and again, this is to talk with an experienced immigration attorney or an accredited representative who is well versed in this type of immigration law. So again, I guess we kind of covered a lot of this, but with that certification letter, these are kinds of the services that they would be eligible to receive once someone has either one of those immigration relief services that we mentioned earlier, either a T visa or bona fide determination notice or continued presence. With that, our clients are eligible for a work permit. And with a work permit, of course, they're eligible to work, not for that employer anymore. They can go work anywhere that they would like. They're eligible to get a social security card and then explore other services. I won't dwell on the ones that are listed here because you can read the slide. But these are just some of the examples of the kinds of services that they can receive once they do have a certification letter. And I think we have some other comments. Robin, you probably have
Yeah,
been keeping up with it more.
just a quick question that's so right on what you're talking about. I wanted to get in here and let you know, they said this certification letter is different than the Supplement B certification from law enforcement, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, for victims of human trafficking, if they are going to be applying for a TV set, we'll cover this a little bit more in a few slides. They are eligible to apply for a TV visa even with that supplement B. When they apply for U visas, they have to have that supplement. This certification letter is not issued by law enforcement. This certification letter is issued by the Health and Human Services Department. So they are the ones that will be issuing just a one-page letter that says that they're eligible for services. Thank you, Daniela. And there is just more information. Did we go to the very end? No?
No.
Okay. There is just more information as to where you can get more about this type of letters. You can actually email the very first one. You can email and ask more about it. For case management, you can also email and find out who has case management within my area, whether it is for victims who are pre-certified or victims who have received this certification letter. All of these are good resources to actually have because they can give you more information about the kinds of benefits that your client might be eligible for. Now, keep in mind that every jurisdiction may have different resources. For example, clients, depending on the organizations and the kind of funding that they have within those areas, might be eligible only for whatever the grant allows. But if there are organizations that have no restrictions on the funding and how they can use that funding, we have seen that within our area, different options for housing, even when housing funding isn't available, buying a bus ticket or buying a gift card for the client to go eat somewhere. There are many different ways to assist client depending on the types of resources that you have within your area.
Can I jump in for a second on that?
Absolutely.
With an example, Graciela was working with a stack client who needed to have about a $300 car repair, and none of the federal grant dollars that were available would pay for that. And so we were really happy because we have a broad base of funding at Stack to get that for her, get that done. And that meant that she could keep her job. That meant she could keep her apartment and her housing. And it was quite foundational, right, to her being able to carry forward. So just to emphasize that point, it's really good to, number one, have the partners that can reach out past some of these grants that have some, requirements, understandable, but they do leave some folks out.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robin, for that great example. Again, finding out what their needs are and really focusing on those needs. That's how you actually build a relationship. Daniela, we are off to our next scenario. Can I read this one for you so that you can actually break it down for everyone? So Manuela. So Manuela is 14 years old and lives in Honduras. Manuela starts an online relationship with Jose, a 24-year-old who lives in the United States. Jose tells Manuela that she can have a better life in the US if she came to live with him, and that he loved her and would take care of her. Manuela lives in extreme poverty, and her parents do not object to her going to the US for a better life. They have never met Jose. Jose gives Manuela a fake name and fake birth certificate to use at the border. Once in ORR custody, Jose claims he is Manuela's brother, and she gets released to him. Manuela becomes pregnant soon after at 15 years old and is in an abusive relationship with Jose, who never let her enroll in school. So, Daniela, can you break it down for us? Is Manuela a victim of human trafficking, and how do you know?
Yeah, Vanya. And again, to all the participants, if they want to put in the chat, and we could talk through it. So, um, for Manuela, and I know we didn't really talk specifically about the definition of human trafficking today, but Stack has so many great resources for that. So, I'm sorry. For Manuela, I would say that she is a victim of human trafficking. And so for her, yes, Zoraida said that there's the intersection of domestic violence and human trafficking. Um, because yeah, exactly, Katie, minors cannot consent, right? So she came under the impression that she would be able to go to school and have a better life. The fraud that occurred of having, even though you don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion for a minor child, that she had a fake birth certificate and was released to him, and now she stays home, right? So there's an exchange. We know that she's pregnant, so we know that there's been an exchange of sex for her to be living where she is. And we could always use more information to gather, but I would say I would think yes.
Yeah. And Daniela, we have a good question in the chat. It says, how is he benefiting from her?
Yes, good question. So right now, so he is presumably using her for sex, right? Again, she's pregnant right now. She may be, because he hasn't let her enroll in school, she may be home alone, having to do all the domestic work. So there's maybe some domestic servitude happening where she's forced to clean the house and do everything if she wants to be fed or have any type of basic necessities. Sex
Okay.
and
We're,
labor,
yeah.
probably. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, thank you for answering that, Daniela, and thank you for everyone who is mentioning this or contributing in the chat. Daniela, does Manuela have immigration status at this point?
So at this point, she does not, right? So she came in through the border. So I know I put ORR custody. So that's Office of Refugee Resettlement. So when an unaccompanied minor comes through the border without one of their legal guardians, they are put into ORR custody. And so ORR will then look for a sponsor, someone who is related to the child in some capacity or knows the family. And so, again, Jose gave her a fake birth certificate to use so that their names would match and that she would be released to him. And he claimed to be her brother. And so ORR released this child to his custody, but she came into the US with no documents. Maybe she has a fear of her going back to her home country. We're not sure. So as of right now, she hasn't encountered any organization that would help her gain some kind of status.
Okay. Thank you, Daniela, for covering that. And how about services? What do you think are the services that she might need?
Yeah. So first with immigration relief, right? Well, right now she needs somewhere else to stay, right? And so uh, having a being put either in DCF care or some other shelter, pregnancy services. Yeah, those are all great. Medical, housing. She needs to go to school, all of her basic needs. And then, of course, when it comes to her actual immigration status, she needs to connect with an organization for immigration relief help,
Absolutely. Thank you. And can you tell us about
counseling.
absolutely in your area, can you tell us what kinds of services might be available for her?
Yeah. Um, so like you said it before, if only every area had a stack, right? So if our office got a call or an applicant like Manuela, first it's uh, referring her to stack for those basic services to see what they could help with. And then we are actually contract to help unaccompanied minors with their immigration relief. So to be able to start that process for her. Yeah, some kind of case manager,
Yeah, moral support,
moral
like that.
support.
Mhm. Absolutely. All of that.
Yeah,
Agree, agree, agree.
yeah,
So, Daniela, how about immigration relief? I know that we've kind of touched on different kinds of immigration relief for survivors and victims of human trafficking. Can you tell us more about those kinds of immigration reliefs?
of course. So So, foreign victims of trafficking, they might be eligible. Vanya already covered, continued presence, the actual trafficking visa, the T visa. Um, Someone brought up the U certification. So that for the U visa, um, it's a visa that helps anyone who's undocumented and has been a victim of a qualifying crime inside of the United States. It doesn't have to have been committed by a US citizen, but there does have to be some kind of agency investigation. So typically that's law enforcement, but it can also be a judicial court. It can be a state agency like DCF, like the Department of Labor. So as long as there's some type of investigation, then especially like how someone brought up, there was the intersection of domestic violence and trafficking, right, Vanya? So why not apply for both the U visa and the T visa,
Absolutely.
especially if the client feels has already done so or feels comfortable reporting to law
Yeah.
enforcement. Um,
Daniela, you said
yeah,
that you work with unaccompanied minors. You're the experts on that in that field within our area. Considering that the parents actually didn't even question this guy, Jose, didn't know him, and just let her kind of come, would you explore anything else for her?
definitely. And I don't know why it's not on the list, but because I think we've talked about it. But so special immigrant juvenile status, that's specifically for any child who entered the United States unaccompanied and um, or I'm sorry, any child who came and has been abandoned, neglected, or abused by one of their parents. They didn't have to come in unaccompanied. Um, I'm just thinking of our grant. So, but if one of the child's parents has abused, abandoned, or neglected them, then we can go to a family court and ask for a judicial order that says it's in the best interest of the child to remain in the United States with, let's say, older sister, older brother, a verified sponsor that's taking care of them, instead of going back home to home country because of this abandonment, abuse, or neglect that occurred. And with that judicial order, then we can apply for the special immigrant juvenile visa, and they'll be able to get a work permit while their petition is pending. So that is another option. Um, and I think in Manuela's case, I would definitely say yes. I mean, there's been neglect under the Florida statutes because they let her take this journey on her own, right? It's a dangerous journey from, um, I think she was from Honduras to make
Mhm.
it all the way to the US on her own.
Yeah. Daniela, how about if Manuela tells you, well, we lived in extreme poverty. I don't want to explore this SIJ option if is going to, look bad on my parents. We kind of haven't really touched on family reunification. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, um, that's, totally valid reason to not want to pursue special immigrant juvenile visa, especially because when you apply, you do have a pathway to a green card and you can adjust your status eventually, but you can never petition for the parents that were the basis of your special immigrant juvenile status. So family reunification isn't really possible under that visa. So we know that a lot of our clients have amazing relationships with their parents, and it's not to get them in trouble. Again, how you said, Vanya, it's really up to the client and ultimately what they want to do. And so we try to explain, you know, realistically what that looks like, what all of their options are. Um, and for a U visa, you would only be talking about the trafficking incident. You don't have to um, say that your parents also abandoned you. Um, and so it's,
Great.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniela. Talking about TV sets, because when we talk about victims of trafficking, a lot of people think about TV sets. Can you tell us more about like the processing time of TV sets? I think you may have to go to.
Yes. So, um, just a snapshot, right? Because even if you get someone in your office that says, yes, I'm pursuing immigration relief, and you're like, okay, great. So you should be able to have a job and pay your rent soon, right? Well, not necessarily. Processing times for immigration petitions can take a really long time. And especially even though now we have bona fide determination letters to allow clients to apply for work permits while their applications are pending, um, petitions for work permits are still could take months, right? And so here we see the I-914 application for teen on immigrant status in the Vermont Service Center is taking 18 months to get approved.
Yeah.
So even and that's always a barrier for other services. Well, first you need to get your social, or first, we can help with first month's rent, but then you have to be able to work. Well, how do you tell someone who's here undocumented, doesn't have a work permit, doesn't have a social, doesn't have resources, family connections, is here on their own? That's tough
Yeah,
to have to wait this long.
absolutely. And with U visas, is that any different, Daniela?
Probably worse, Vanya. It's much worse. So unfortunately,
Hmm.
yeah, U visas are taking like anywhere from 5 to 8 years right now,
Yeah.
to process. And again, U visa petitioners can, uh, you know, after they send their applications, wait for USCIS to give them a bona fide determination letter saying that they can apply for a work permit under deferred action while they're waiting. But those could take also multiple years.
Yeah, absolutely. So Daniela, just to piggyback on what you said, um, it is good to see who is in your area. I know that if only if the clients are willing to talk to law enforcement, there is that option of if there is an investigation and you have a very good relation with law enforcement. And again, if the clients feel absolutely comfortable talking to law
Yeah.
enforcement and they want to cooperate in an investigation, there is always an option of um, requesting or talking, negotiating with our partners, right? Can you explore continued presence? Again,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, I briefly mentioned, but continued presence is not something that an immigration attorney can actually file. It needs to be directly a law enforcement request to have this form of relief. And with that, while the investigation is ongoing, they can have a work permit much faster. Again, let's go back and make sure that that is what the client wants. We're not going to impose anything on what the client wants.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a good point, Vanya. Um,
Speaking on that really quickly, I'd like to highlight something in the chat from Zoraida Arias. I'm so glad you're including these great resources at King County Sheriff's Office in Washington State. We have the U visa and T visa program designed to support immigrant victims of crimes and seeking the UNT. So they have actually within law enforcement designated people, I'm guessing, and expertise for this, which is, oh my gosh, how do we get that every place in our state? That would be great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for
absolutely.
mentioning that too, Zoraida. That is really an excellent thing to do.
Yeah. And there is another good question, Danielle, if I may highlight it. It says, if they do get a job, would it jeopardize their process?
If they do, okay. I mean, it depends, but um,
Let's say for tease and use, what do you think? Because you can always get different kinds of waivers, but
right,
for use, there isn't one needed for anyone that has
right.
worked without an employment authorization
Right.
document, right?
Yeah. It doesn't violate an immigration rule if you're
Hmm.
applying under that. So it doesn't, what we say, inadmissible. It won't make them, it'll allow them to continue their immigration process even if they have. So, for instance, a special immigrant juvenile, they don't even have to disclose to immigration if they have worked without a work permit before. Um,
However, for later on,
of,
because
yeah,
if they do want to explore adjustment, I always recommend that clients disclose from the beginning, since we know that that is not going to be an admissibility ground. But at the point of when they are applying for the green card, that is a very specific question that is asked on that immigration application for their green card. What would you say? Would you say that yes, they should disclose it at that point, just so that there aren't any gray areas when they adjust?
always tell the truth.
Hmm.
Always tell the truth. So,
Thank you, Daniela.
I think they get it now that, people have to work. It's just with or without a work permit.
Absolutely.
Um, okay, so just in general, again, mentioned it before, but victims' rights regardless of immigration status. Um, you have the right to due process. You have the right to report the crime. Um, and there's just, again, a lot of misinformation out there. And I've had clients who unfortunately were victims, let's say, again, domestic violence for many years, and until, you know, they talked to someone else that said, call the police. And they're like, I don't think I can, or I'm scared. And until someone is able to help them out of that situation. I think the same can go with trafficking, and especially if people aren't familiar that with the fact that they have rights in this country, regardless of their status.
Absolutely. So, why is it important to know how our organizations can help foreign national victims of human trafficking? So, let's think about it. Trafficking is not something that should be happening in our communities, right? And if we want to prevent this type of crime, we need to work together, right? So it takes a lot. It takes a whole village to really work on prevention, to work on providing services to victims and survivors of trafficking. Um, and I understand that organizations may think that, oh, social services, there's a lack capacity to serve this population because they don't have a social security card or social security number, they don't have a work permit. There are different ways, there are different services, which we have already talked about for pre-certified victims who absolutely have nothing, for certified victims who may already have a work permit. Or have had their immigration application granted. Daniela, if we can continue. What is the biggest barrier your agency faces when serving foreign victims of human trafficking?
Is it language barrier? Is it funding limitations? Is it lack of training and information for the service process? Or is it something else?
Okay, we're getting some in the chat, and it says housing, finding quality employment, lack of training. This is all from the chat. Um, affordable houses, finances, all of the above, training and awareness, all of the above, absolutely. Funding, yes, that's funding is a big limitation. Robin, were you going to contribute to something else? Mhm.
Only to say that the chat is revealing that pretty much everything is is a barrier, that, and some of the things like housing is an issue for everyone in
Yeah,
our communities. So it's all of the above
absolutely.
from the chat. Yes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Daniela, can we move to the next one? So who do we call, right? Who do we call when we have lack of institutional memory? And so we need to get our organizations ready to make sure that the next person that is coming actually knows the connections we have. There has to be some kind of consistency, right? There has to be some kind of connection so that there isn't that lack of institutional memory, lack of access to updated information. This is something that we have to do constantly. We have to find out, okay, what is the latest? Now, when it comes to anything related with immigration issues, we are in a world that changes every single year, even from month to month, sometimes services change. So continuing that connection, there are different task forces that work, task forces and coalitions all around the state. And I'm sure for anybody that is out of state, I mean, look at that, the whole connection, the whole network that I think Washington State has. Someone from there said, oh, this is the process we have. Well, let's make sure that when we establish those processes, they're passed on, and so that our partners know. So making also sure that we have policies and procedures that those are established. In language barriers, well, let's find out what reliable resources are out there. For example, working at a state university, we constantly reach out to our modern languages department, for example. I reach out to them for our clients to have psychological evaluations. There are different people in the community that, for example, they can go to background checks if that is something that your organization is going to require, to make sure that you have people that are committed to a certain mission and that everything is going to be kept confidential. So there are resources that we need to look for ahead of time, not when we are in that situation already. So can we continue, Daniela? So definitely collaboration. Can we service collaboration, working together? Really, there is no way that any single organization can absolutely cover every need that someone has. And there is always something that an organization can do or how they can contribute. So there is, good communication all the time, so that it encompasses everything that we can do together, and we can actually not compete against one another. I've been in this field for long enough to say that funding is hard, and it's not about the funding. It's not about competing. It is about making sure that we are providing the services and that we're providing it in a victim-centered approach, and that we are working together, respecting member roles. Okay, Daniela, you actually are an expert at this. I can contribute to this because I know this very well. Okay. And again, making sure that we keep that constant communication, and also to inform the client who we are communicating with, because the client, again, is the center. I am not going to disclose any information to anyone unless I get permission from my client to actually connect her to other services. So make sure that you're not actually taking the lead and just saying, okay, I'm just going to do it, because I think that that's the best for the client. No, find out from the client, make the client
Right.
part of that. So the ultimate goal is to really to meet their needs, right? So there is case management, legal, mentoring services, and different kinds of service providers that can contribute to that. There are actually the people in general. I think that prevention is super important, and I am so thankful that we have organizations like STAC that really takes the lead on providing these free webinars so that we look at different issues around trafficking so that the whole community is informed, because their prevention takes so much less effort that having that reactive approach. So there are many different resources. I would encourage you to go to the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center website. The website is here for you. And again, connect with the different organizations within your area. Find out who the human trafficking task forces and coalitions are in your area. Attend meetings, attend trainings, um, see how your organization actually fits the mission to really contribute to the efforts of those different coalitions and task forces, whether it's local, state, or even at a national level.
Yeah, that's awesome, Vanya. Yes, any excuse to email or call you. Okay,
Absolutely.
so we wanted to open it up for questions. So feel free to put in the chat box
And
anything that we haven't covered already.
And I did see something I wanted to bring to your attention as people might be reflecting now and putting in some questions. That earlier someone mentioned how everything was more difficult as they were assisting a family, a Haitian family, that certain communities aren't prepared to have responses. They may, for example, be there for the Latino community or for, another specific population group. But I think that also varies as well. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And cultural, language barriers, all of that really has a lot of influence as to how different cases are approached. And it's really getting a plan together ahead of time. I know that sometimes cases just come and you're not prepared for it, but try to make those connections really ahead of time. I can't really stress enough that there are probably organizations that may not be attending meetings that they should probably be part of the meeting because there is something that they can do to help. And so having that plan ahead of time. And again, for those language barriers, find out through educational institutions like universities, colleges, find out what language resources you can actually get from them. You'll be surprised as to how much they can contribute. Actually, we being in academic setting, we also work a lot with. I have to really highlight the importance of our students and how our students have been able to do so much in at the center in particular. We wouldn't be able to do the kind of work that we do with our wonderful interns. But aside from our interns as well, student organizations that really take on a mission to help like whole communities. This afternoon, I have Aranza, one of the presidents from an organization. Aranza, if you want to just, oh, I think she's walking away. Anyway, she helps our refugees and immigrants within our community. So finding out how even student organizations can actually help, you'll be surprised all the resources that you would find.
And let me give a little footnote to your comments about language and interpreters. I know we went through this when I used to work in the field of violence against women, intimate partner violence, where um, you had to make sure that the interpreters that you worked with were prepared on a number of levels that they had expertise in certain phrases and words that they would be able to translate. Because if you start talking about specific forms of injury, and language, for example, in terms of what is human trafficking, what is forced labor, will they know how to kind of translate some of those things that are accurate to what you're wanting? And also that these are very traumatic situations, and some interpreters are not prepared to hear what has happened to a survivor. And I think doing some vetting of interpreters is really important too.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree, Robin. Just quickly wanted to share so that to kind of expand a little bit on your point. We were at a hearing, and my clients were from Mexico, and the interpreter was from a different country. And the interpreter kept saying things that my clients actually were not saying. I'm not from Mexico, but I had been working with clients long enough to actually understand the words that they were using. And so I had to interrupt it during that hearing so many times. I was actually driving the judge a little crazy. She didn't like my interruptions. But I said, well, I wanted on the record that my clients are not referring to, or they're not saying this, this, and this, that the interpreter had already stated on record. So
Yeah.
yes, Robin, it is very important with interpretation services that they're trained to really work with different populations too.
Yeah.
Yes, and two people, Graciela and Gloria, have said, good for the interruptions, representing your client to the fullest. Yes. So, and then Doreen is echoing that they use a certified language service for courts and visits. Just make sure that they're conversant in this very specialized world, not just of immigration law, but, I think something said wrong or misinterpreted literally in a transcript could haunt someone for their entire process, right? If they, whatever might happen. So yeah, an additional vetting is always important. So thank you, Doreen. That's
Yeah.
good that you're using certified language services. I know sometimes people use the phone line, or, they use the AT&T language line, things like that. There are limitations. The other thing I'd like to say as a nonprofit, that when you write grants, everybody put in money for interpreters. Make sure you're budgeting that as just a given. In our world, it's very important. And often we're caught off short, and it's not just, it's sign language, it's American Sign Language. It could be other kinds of languages, but we need to make everyone aware that this is vital. I think I was also talking to a law enforcement officer recently who didn't have anybody in the entire unit available to speak Spanish to somebody on site. And I was shocked to know that some of our partner agencies don't have, basic language facility with such a large population, right? So I think all of these points go very deep into how we do our work in community. Um,
Thank
any
you,
other
Robin.
point?
I'm going to
Yeah.
share the CLE
Oh,
information
good,
for
good.
those who are
Yes, thank
here
you.
and need CLE course number 2412523N as in Nancy, 2 general credits. And I'll leave this
And do
slide
we
for a minute.
also quick have the name of the course? I think it's human trafficking, and it's something very creative like human trafficking and immigration. Um, but we can add that too in there. That would be great. So, and also if any of you, and I'll just put this out there, say you're a social worker and you want to see if you can get credit. All you have to do, and if your accrediting board needs something else, like they need a bio or they need an outline, I'll send you this, like what we did to get the CLEs from the Florida bar, right? So you can on your own submit, and sometimes that happens. So that's that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Robin, for sharing that information. Again, this is our contact information. Happy to follow up with any of you. Happy to actually connect. At the center in the of the Advancement of Human Rights at FSU, we have convene task forces and coalitions within the state of Florida. In the past, that's something we are exploring to obtain funding actually to make that a mission of the center. And so we're still hoping that we are going to have a meeting of the task forces and coalitions next year. The Attorney General's office actually has. Is it the attorney? Yes, the Attorney General's office actually has a list of points of contacts for all the coalitions and human trafficking task forces around the state of Florida. Please check those out. It is always good to see how you can get connected locally.
And a couple of comments in the chat I want to highlight before we wind up here. On again, going back on the interpretation issue, interpreting services, that sometimes specific genders are requested because you could have a victim, say, of violent sexual abuse, not want to speak to a male, or maybe they do want to speak to him. I mean, you can't make assumptions, as you said, Vanya, going to the client. So thank you, Sada, for bringing that up. And actually, Eliza also mentions a lot of people are scared to speak up due to gender inequality. And I would guess too, that could be around cultural issues, direct experience, but even being able to speak up is extremely, taking a step to come forward for help is a powerful first step. And thank you, Eliza, for bringing that up as well. There's very, very important. Um, so Liana is bringing up reaching out to the Tampa Bay Area Refugee Task Force that they need. Oh, we should reach out to them. Tell them about us. This is going to be. We'll post this on our website. So this program will be up there to reiterate that with both the PowerPoint and the video recording will be up soon. So if we all should reach out to the Tampa Bay Area Refugee Task Force, we'd love to know more about them. And we invite you to share this program with them as well. Any other comments or questions, everybody? This has been a wonderful program. It's so informative. And, you know, everybody, I'm a lawyer, but I would never begin to practice immigration law. It is a very specialized area. So what you really do have to do is keep Vanya and Daniela's information close at hand. Find out who the Vanya and Daniela are in your area, so you know, and not just an immigration specialist, but an immigration specialist who knows human trafficking. I mean, they might be really good on other parts of immigration law, but take the time to quiz them. How many cases have you had before? What have you, what outcomes have you had? Who do you
Yeah.
work with? And you can get a sense of things. So please do that.
Robin, and just to
Is
kind
it
of
possible?
expand a little bit more on that, when you say to reach out to someone who actually knows about human trafficking is so important. I've had clients that have been represented by different people, and their cases have gone not the way they should have. And so when they come to me, we try to see, okay, how can we help, and try to get everything together for the client so that the client can actually have the case going the right path again. Happy to share that this was the case for one of our clients whose daughter couldn't come when her T visa was approved, and we have been able to connect her with like the with IOM, International Organization for Migration, and her daughter is going to be arriving and reuniting with her mom next Tuesday. So that's why we do this kind of work, right? Because
Absolutely. It makes it all worthwhile. And thank you for sharing everything you both have shared with us today. We're at 2:29. Lots of claps and thumbs ups and hearts are coming your way. Let me tell you all, everybody, we're not gonna, so thank you. We are not going to be doing a third Friday in December, but we will be back in January, January 17th. So happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year. Mark your calendars, January 17th. I'll give you a snippet, which is Stack is going to be releasing a sister website by and for survivors. We're very eager to share this resource with everybody. So please remember January 17th to hear from Jamie Rosalind, who is a consultant to Stack and has helped to build an amazing website. I promise you, you'll be really excited to see it. The other thing to mention, January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Let's stay on. Oh, somebody loves our podcast. Thank you, Doreen. Please stay connected with us. Sign up for our newsletter. We want to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you ideas about Third Fridays for 2025. I just wrote down Zoraida Arias's name because maybe it would be great to hear from King County, Washington, and what you're doing, and other law enforcement agencies around the country that are doing such sounds like excellent work. So if you all have any ideas about programs, if you yourselves are experts, Victor Williams has been on. Victor, you were on a couple months ago. And so was the Bright program. Megan was on too. Bright program in Tampa, look it up. We would love to know more about that. So to all of you, oh, there's your contact information. Thank you. And we look forward to connecting with you. Okay. That's what it's all about, everybody. We're stronger together. Thank you for your for being here. And really, everybody, at this very difficult time, please stick to trusted resources only when it comes to this issue of immigration and the vulnerable immigrants in our world who, in our communities, in our country, that are trafficked, so we can be there 100% and for our immigrant communities. So thank you all, everybody. Daniela, Vanya, thank you. Thank you, Lisa Coy, Just in Time Training Network. We love you again for everything you do to make these possible. And everybody, have a great weekend.